live. We are live. Yay! And I'm so excited, Wayne, because it's my first LinkedIn Live, so I can't
Oh
believe
my,
it.
oh my goodness. This is history in the making,
It is.
Leslie.
It is. And I got my COVID shot last week, so
Yeah.
I feel like I've won the lotto this week with getting LinkedIn Live and getting my COVID shot, and maybe life will get somewhat back to normal in
Yeah.
some semblance sometime soon. So
Yes, no, I hear you. This is awesome. Oh, it's great to be here.
I'm so excited because for a number of different reasons. Number one, and I'm going to just change our view here to the speaker view. Okay, so
Sure.
number one, I'm so excited because I have seen you present so many times. I've been so lucky. Still afraid of being on stage yet. Still afraid of being the guinea pig. So I'm actually, why don't I just introduce you as opposed to getting into the nitty gritty? So
Sure.
I'm excited. My heart is palpitating that I'm here today with Wayne Lee, the very handsome Wayne Lee. An award-winning Hall of Fame speaker who's been using magic, hypnosis, and motivational messages in his keynotes. We're going to talk about all these motivational messages, peak performance. I think that's why people are so excited to hear you speak, Wayne, is because that's your jam, and to get people out of their own way. For over 20 years, you've worked with professionals and audiences such as Investors Group, the eWomen Network, Compass Group Canada, Westin Hotels and Resorts, Dell Canada, MasterCard Canada, McDonald's Restaurants of Canada, Manulife Financial, and you and I met at Amy Riddell's BA World, was it the BA World, I think? It's definitely,
And then the admin group too.
and the admin group, yeah. So the girls and the ladies in the the audience were all like, "Oh, he's so handsome." So you bring a lot, not just your like good looks, but you bring a lot of like powerful, positive messages to the
It's just
audience.
not the way I look. There's depth to it.
Pardon?
There's depth to it, not just the way I look. There's
Well, yeah, either
yeah.
that or you've hypnotized all of us into thinking how handsome. No, I'm just totally kidding. But that's part of your show too, which is the funny part. Is when you get people in the hypnosis part, you get them to think that you're not good looking, and clothing optional, a part of it too, which I think anybody who saw your show it's so funny.
Right. And it shows you how powerful perception is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that's a big part of it for sure.
Perception and also what I loved about you and I both have talked about this offline about the power of the subconscious and
Yes.
the power of the motivational messages and getting out of our own way with so I even want to just lead right off the hop with self-limiting beliefs.
Oh,
So
yes.
tell us, yeah, so talk about how do people get rid of these self-limiting beliefs? I mean,
Well, first of all, I like to say the technical term is BS, the belief systems, right?
okay.
The whole aspect of it's a cycle and a circle of transformation where those beliefs people are swimming in. So first of all, it's about waking up to what those beliefs are, because people tell themselves a pretty good story, myself included. We get caught up in being right. And one of the jobs of our subconscious, which is it's a beautiful friend if we know how it works and then embrace it, is to be right. Now here's the interesting thing. Whether you are getting closer to your goal or farther away, being right is what it's going to support you in being. So if you have a belief that says you can't do it or there's not enough time, then it will support you and it will find evidence in the world that you'll be late and that you won't be able to do it. The magic to that, and it really is magic, is when you think about it, is that if our beliefs are dictating everything, and I don't know if there's enough time to get into it on this call about how our beliefs are really dictating our destiny, then when you change your belief and people understand they can change that belief, and that's what hypnosis is. And interestingly enough, is people have been hypnotized to gain those beliefs to begin with, not even realizing it, then it's freedom. They have the aspect to choose what to put into their head, which will then dictate their feelings and their behavior. But first, it's about waking up to understanding what story am I telling myself that's limiting me from moving forward, and then be open to pick a better story, which is really picking better sentences, which are picking better suggestions, which is the power of suggestion, which is hypnosis.
Right, and I think it's funny because, and I'm sure you get this all the time, Wayne, is that people are terrified of hypnosis. They're
They
terrified.
are. I poke fun of it all the time because when I got into this 25 years ago, maybe even longer, I got a message from somebody here the other day saying, I'm going to see you here on LinkedIn. And it was 20 years ago that you hypnotized me. And I was like, oh yeah, I've been doing it for that long. There's so many misconceptions, whether that's birthed out of the movies or just myths that's there, as well as how it looks, how phenomenal it looks. When I'm on stage and I'm putting somebody to sleep, the first myth I'll bust is that when you're hypnotized, you're never asleep. You're always aware. You just don't care. So although it looks like I'm putting people to sleep, I'm actually waking people up to their unlimited potential by releasing the limiting beliefs that have held them back. Some other things that are really yummy about hypnosis is 1 hour of hypnosis feels like 8 hours of sleep, because people are not fighting themselves. As you put it, Leslie, it's perfect. They're in their own way. And that's how you can tell people have limiting beliefs, because how they feel. So when they feel that tension, that stress, some people call that fear or pain, they're fighting themselves. But when they get aligned, and I really believe that's one of my missions is to get people aligned, to wake up that they're already whole, complete, and perfect. And they just have to own that. And when they do, they create out of choice rather than necessity or out of circumstance. So I'm going on a bit of a vibe rant, if that's okay.
That's all perfect. No, I'd rather you do the talking, because you know I can talk, but this is all about you, not about me.
And if you want a definition for hypnosis, here it is. It's really when somebody like myself gives you a suggestion and you act upon it as if it is real. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's it. It's the non-critical acceptance of an idea into your mind. And the way I'll use it as an example is, if you see my comedy show where I get people dancing, and before they got hypnotized, they would be saying, no, I'm not going to dance up on stage, because they're too preoccupied about what other people think of them, or they don't think they're a good dancer, when in fact we all have a dance within us. It's kind of the metaphor, the dynamic and natural creative expression that we all have within us. But as soon as I get them out of their way, they let go of that analytical mind, they're open to new seeds, to new suggestions, where I say, when you hear the next piece of music, you're the greatest dancer in the world. Now, because they believe it and they have no reference of not believing it, guess what? When they hear the music, they act as if they're the greatest dancers in the world. Now, some of them truly aren't the greatest dancers, but they show up and they dance as if they are, and it blows people away. Now, what if instead of me telling them when they hear the next piece of music, they're going to be a great dancer, what if I told them that when they wake up, they're going to go to the gym, they're going to accomplish all their goals in their life, they're going to hit their financial targets, they're going to have their dream career, they're going to be a better leader? What if I told them that instead, and they believed it, and then they went out and did it?
It's really transformational, for sure. For sure.
That's it.
Why not? Why not? Why could not be true?
You know, if you look at the word belief, in the middle of belief, there's the word lie, right? And lie is an acronym for letting illusions exist. Mm-hmm. So pick a better illusion. Right. Pick a better result. And so many people are living in what I call the borrowed beliefs of things that have been indoctrinated, where that wasn't even the case. And I'll give you an example. Like when I was growing up, I had a very successful stepdad that he was so proud, and he always loved to take us out for dinner, as well as all of his friends and business partners. One time we were going out for dinner, and I went to go pick up the bill because I wanted to see, I was 10 years old. I wanted to see the bill and was curious about it. And as soon as I went to pick it up, he slapped my hand, and I was like stunned. And somehow I created this association that in order to be successful, you have to take care of everyone. Okay. And you've got to pay for dinner, and you got to. So at a young age, we pick up these associations that we don't even know why we've got these beliefs. Mm-hmm. But how it played out in my life is, making pretty good money back in the day, but I felt like I had to take care of all my employees, even though we weren't working, or I had to take everybody out for dinner. So it's those subtle little things that we pick up that then show up as patterns later on. And sometimes people will think, well, I just do another sales call, or I'll just, do this other strategy, when in fact, at a subconscious level, that's running the show. Mm-hmm. And unless you change those subconscious programs, then not much else changes.
Right. Yeah. Because it does. It takes that repetition over and over. And to your point, those subconscious patterns that we have in our head, we're not even aware that they're there. Or like it's the conversations that we've had in our head that you know, that little chirping thing. And sometimes it's our parents' voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes like the voice comes in the sound of my mother. No, she's really
Yeah.
good. But but it can be
Of
like,
course.
I'm not enough. If I only do this, then I will be enough. Which I think most of us sort of have these, like, the people pleasing vibe in us. If I do this, then people will like me. If I, you know, and I find this really around LinkedIn as well, that people are terrified of using LinkedIn as a channel because they're afraid of putting themselves out there. It's a little different than, say, Facebook or Instagram, that they can be fun and playful because that's their friends and family. But when they're putting their professional face out there, it could be missed opportunities. It could be judgment from people who don't know me so well.
Yeah.
So I do my best, like you, to help reframe people to get more comfortable with putting themselves out there, because what I say is nobody knows what you know from your perspective. And if you're holding that back, if you're holding all those goodies back from sharing with people the things that they want to know, that you're saying like, oh, people are going to judge me, you're actually doing them a disservice. And
Exactly.
and I'm going to throw the word "but" in there, which we'll talk about in a bit. But but it's something that I struggle with all the time. So I feel like I can relate to their fears and frustrations, because it's a journey. Like it's kind of like a practice. Like yoga is a practice. It's constantly reminding myself that it's okay. That it's okay to be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable.
Exactly. And it's a way of life, like you said. It is a way of life, and it's not a one-shot thing. I know I coach a lot of people now, and a lot of people, from just talking and uncovering what they want me to fix them.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the flawed premise is in that, and I've said it on stage thousands of times, is that, you know, people feel like they're broken or they need to be fixed, when in fact no one needs to be fixed. The only thing that needs to be fixed is their focus, and their focus is always predetermined by their subconscious belief system. So when people want that, they're actually giving their power away, whether they come to me in hopes of getting fixed, or I'm going to just hire this next person, they're going to solve all my problems. When in fact, the problem is not the problem. It's your thinking about it. That's the problem. So highly successful people, they have a different way of looking at things. And first and foremost, it comes down to how they look at themselves. So their subconscious identity, and that's a fancy word for what's your self-image.
Mm-hmm.
And if I ask somebody a question like, do you see yourself doing that in 2 years? And if they can't even picture that, if they can't even get themselves, then that goal setting really is not going to get them there, because they have to. And I like to say that success is created in two places. First, it's created in your mind, connected to that heartfelt desire of what you want. And then it happens in the physical world. But so many people, it's elusive because they like, there's so many people grinding nowadays. And I have nothing against grinding. I mean, trust me, I like hard work. And when you can take your passion and funnel it, great. But there's so many people that are working so darn hard out there and they're not getting anywhere. In fact, it leads to the burnout, the busy burnout. So unless they get a line from within and they see that, they won't have a North Star that's guiding them. They'll always be like all over the map. And there's a saying that I have, is that you'll never outperform your self-identity. So who you have in your subconscious is either a vision of, say, somebody that, I'll give you an example when it comes to, say, health and fitness or weight loss. There's certain people that see themselves as always been unfit and overweight, and then they're trying to lose weight. That self-image is actually what's guiding them to always go back to who they think they are. Now, if they have a vision that they're healthy, they're fit, they're vital, they've just gained a few pounds, guess what? They're going to go back to being that healthy, because that's the norm of who they are. So then any amount of exercise or any amount of activity will sometimes be just frustration, because they'll always go back to who they see themselves as. And that is what we classify as self-sabotage.
Oh, yeah. Which is rampant. I mean, I think most of us, unless you're narcissistic, are like, it's something that most of us, if not all of us, struggle with. And I don't know if you've heard this saying, but I say it all the time. So it's, when you're inside the jar, you can't see the label. Yes. And it's like, that was like when I heard that, I was like, that is so true, is we never see ourselves the way that other people see us.
Yeah.
And in fact, when other people sort of mirror back to me, like, oh, you do this or you do that or you're da-da-da, and it's that and sometimes I find too, Wayne, and you know this as a speaker, like I write my own bio, right, as most of us do.
Yeah.
That then you get up there and someone reads your bio and it's like, oh shucks, like, oh, it's just me. It's like I wrote the darn thing, and now people are mirroring that back to me, and I'm all this humble, oh shucks, me, it's just me, and even as high up on the food chain of the people that I write LinkedIn profiles for, like senior executives, invariably almost every single one of them will say the same thing to me, that the vision that they have of themselves, that people just found out that they like aren't as all-knowing, all-powerful, omnipotent as people think that they are, that the curtain will be open, or whatever metaphor you want it to be.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think on one hand it certainly helps us to continue to want to prove ourselves. So in some ways it saves us.
Yeah.
And in other ways it sort of sabotages us. So I think you're right, like insofar as finding that balance.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at highly successful people that have accomplished a lot, they're still trying to prove themselves to somebody, or somebody that maybe has passed on. And that is going to lead them to more trying to prove themselves. And so the only person they really need to prove themselves is to themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why I go back to, and the foundation of what I teach is that you're already whole, complete, and perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect means all of your perceived flaws. That's who you hear. And so being able to share that, like being authentic, being real, and then that's very freeing, as well as people then shift into creating from choice,
right,
versus circumstance. Like especially this last year, I'll tell you, you want to have a good test, it's this last year. And seeing how people are affected by, they're either creating out of choice or circumstance. And, an example that's fairly black and white is some people saw this as an opportunity to help and serve others, and other people thought of as a problem and what's happening. And sure, we go back and forth, but how people see it is going to determine how they go through it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And and there's so much, like, from the NLP language that you and I both know, the reframe, like how can you just take a situation and turn it and change the story in it?
Yeah.
And it's just so powerful.
It is. And you asked a question about, like, how do you know people have self-limiting beliefs? Anybody that's watching, anybody that's taking this in right now, is the best indicator that a self-belief is, or a self-limiting belief is coming up, is that you feel it. So you feel a sense of disempowered. All of our thoughts precede our feelings, the emotions that are happening and the chemistry that's happening. A thought is energy, and a thought then colors your feeling state. It's going to color that emotion. So when people are feeling sad, it's the greatest indicator that people aren't aligned and empowered to who they are. And so then asking the question, what's beneath that feeling? What's the soundbite? What's the sentence of my mind? And so people have to gain this awareness to understand. That's why coaching is so powerful, because you know how you said when you're in the jar, you can't see the label?
Yeah.
Somebody else coaches. I know I was in the sport of amateur wrestling for 20 years. And in that sport, one of the reasons why I did well in the sport was because I had phenomenal coaching. Because I had people that were holding me accountable, that was showing me the right technique, as well as showing me what I wasn't doing right. And so we're so close to our own stuff that being part of a very potent environment and mentors are keys. You can know all the strategies, yet putting yourself in the midst of a great environment, that's so powerful, as we know nowadays, like what people are going through, like how important the group energy is.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. And from a social media perspective, sometimes that can be a good thing. Like I say to I'm going to kind of go in two different directions, but I say to my son all the time, like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. That, the people that he surrounds himself with, if they're positive people, he will live a positive, forward moving life. And the same thing sort of goes with the people that we associate. And I find that, there's a quote that I heard from somebody that said, like, the best thing about social media is that everybody has a voice, and the worst thing about social media is that everybody has a voice. So the problem with some of the channels is that negative, like, oh, like people are just moaning and complaining. And I don't even watch the news anymore because of like, if it bleeds, it leads. And I want to stay positive. So I'll pick and choose the people that I sort of associate with because I want to live a positive life. I don't want to be listening to someone who just like is always going on about their woes and never doing anything about it. So
Yeah.
you know, it does, like the circles that you keep, because some of those people, to that same extent, those people that moan and complain will draw the other people who moan and complain. Like they hang out with the same circles because that like brings in like, right?
Exactly. It's so evident and so powerful because all you have to do is go onto a social media platform and start clicking on some things, and then already it's going to feed you what you're focused on.
Yes, the
So
filter
it shows
bubble.
you through the algorithm that it's going to give you exact. You know, there's no other time that it's done that more now than ever. Is that you're basically a magnet in what you're putting out there. So a lot of times people will even complain about all the negativity, but they're the ones that are actually complaining about it. So that thought and that focus is getting more of it, right? So people have to be super clear on what their intentions are and their focus.
And people, I've been in this digital world for over 20 years, and I'm still learning about how that you're right. The algorithm of what you put into what you're looking at, what stuff you're paying attention to, is just only going to get mirrored back to us more and more as the algorithm learns more and more. And you're so right. And that's where the tough part, and we can even go down that rabbit hole of, you know, people will just get those, like the same thing about the self-fulfilling prophecy is that people who wanted to believe in conspiracy theories will find more conspiracy theories. The people that wanted to, so it just, that technology is working and that they're getting smarter like humans.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it's
reality is created through validation and what you believe is true. So when you start believing it, it's true. You're gonna, you know, we live in this world of invisible forces that we can tune in and tap into, and it's so powerful. Yet some people haven't woken up to that yet in terms of how they can create something out of nothing, and that's what's happening. And sometimes people are unconscious, and sometimes people are super conscious of it and
yeah.
using it to their benefit. So that's what I get excited about is, you know, having this platform where I've been for years to do these funny, entertaining things, but there's an educational part to it that really leads to one place, which is empowerment, which no one changes anyone. People just wake up to who they are and they either own their brilliance, their magnificence, or they don't. And a lot of it has to do with their self-talk, what they're saying to themselves and reinforcing. Words are so powerful. Words are powerful, and yet they're only as powerful as the meanings we attach to them. So be super clear on what you're telling yourself and what you're telling others and how you're communicating. You know, and the highest paid people in the world are the best communicators.
True,
Right?
because we are in some ways. The one thing I've learned, and I don't know if we've had this discussion before, because as you've been on like the big keynote stage. I've done a few little keynote stages, and I realize so much of it is about entertainment. That the messaging has to be there, but people want to be entertained at the end of the day. So I think that's what I loved about when I saw you, and I've seen you I think 3 times now, and every time I'm getting closer and closer to the front row. Every time I see you, I go like, okay, I'll take the chairs away. I won't actually get on the stage to actually be, you know.
So Leslie, this is a prime
Right.
opportunity for me to ask you, what are you afraid of going
It's
up on stage?
it's funny because I really don't have a lot. I mean, because I've taken the NLP, I'm a lot closer with not worrying about what people think of me, but I still have that what will people think of me. And I think it is, and was a question I was going to ask you, it is a little bit of the loss of control. And that I think a lot of other people might feel the same way too. I'm not a control freak by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that's maybe and it's also being with strangers. It's kind of like being out of control in a room full of strangers that may judge me. And also as I continue to think of it, because I'm also speaking usually at the same conferences that you are, I don't want people who've been in my audience to see me losing the control, because it's my brand, it's my persona to show up as being the presence. If it was just my friends, my goofy friends that I don't mind making an embarrassment out of, like, or if you know, then I might not be as concerned. But yeah, I think, and that's why I was sort of curious. I was going to ask you whether that's another reason why people are afraid to get on your stage, is that perceived loss of control. And as you're going to tell me, it's all in my mind.
No, but the misperception too, or the misinterpretation of it is when people get hypnotized, they're not in control. When in fact, you're at a heightened state of awareness where you are just dialed into my suggestions. And because of that, you can tap into your subconscious, and any time you could reject the suggestions. And I've had so many people, after hypnotizing thousands of people, I'm very proud to say only 3 people have never woken up.
They're still sleeping. They're still Rip Van Winkle. Wake up!
Yeah, I just wanted to wake up anybody watching right now. Going, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we call it, a pattern interrupt, right? But the whole aspect of people being aware and they don't care, they've surrendered and they're trusting more than ever. So, I'm flipping it on its head, is that people that need to keep control, then it takes a tremendous amount of energy because that's usually ruled by fear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if people just let that go, and that's what an example of what being hypnotized is all about, and they just were themselves, then they wouldn't think or be concerned about what other people think. I mean, there's that saying, is that what they think is none of your business.
Right. Yeah. And so, if I have enough cocktails, I won't care.
Right. Because
it's the same thing. It's a liquid courage, but you do it without all the cocktails.
Right. Yeah. Plus a couple of cocktails or 2, plus the hypnosis, then that's dynamite.
Yeah, and then I really do think I'm a great dancer, and I think I know all the answers to everything too. I'll give you cocktails as well.
Well, speaking of not cocktails and that, like, because it's funny, we went on a tangent here, and that's like it is parallel to, like, hey, I've had a couple of cocktails, I've loosened up, I let go, but you don't need the cocktails, you just need to do it in your head.
Absolutely.
But most people fear rejection, or failure. And so if we break that down and we look at what that means, is that at some level, and it's the deepest level, people don't think they're enough.
Right.
And now going down to the next level, it's that they're not loved or not lovable. So when people understand that they're already that, then they surrender and then they move forward. And isn't it interesting how people may not come out and do a video or put themselves out there because they're afraid of being judged? They know how to turn on a camera, they know how to speak, they know how to do these things, but they're afraid, and that's what trips them up. Mm-hmm. So first of all, get that out of the way, knowing that you will be judged. Get over that.
Yeah.
And the person that's judging you, that comes from their own reference. 100%. And their insecurity, and knowing that when people are too focused upon being judged, it's actually a selfish level of how am I going to look, as opposed to what value am I going to provide for others?
Absolutely.
What value can I communicate that will serve whoever my audience is? That question, even of itself, and this is now taking us to a really powerful tool, which is the power of questions. Mm-hmm. Do you know that we're only communicating through words in one of 2 ways? We're either asking ourselves questions or we're giving ourselves commands. And so the power of questions that people ask are so disempowering. Like, why does this always happen to me? Like, why can't I do this? And you know what? They're actually not only asking a question, they're giving a search command to their powerful subconscious that's going to validate what they just asked. So in a heartbeat, in a second, in a nanosecond, boom, bam, shazam, people get asked, what else is possible?
Right.
What's next? And sometimes these techniques, these tools seem too simple for people, and that's why they don't even buy into them. Mm-hmm. Yet that's what makes the difference. 80% of business and growing a business and leading a team, 80% is mindset. But now, having me just said that, the people that are watching this, some people go, well, I know what a mindset is. Yet if they're not living it, they know about it, they haven't ingrained it. And our subconscious loves repetition. It loves emotion. So reinforce it on a daily basis till it becomes a habit. Right. And all successful athletes know this, that they practice 2 hours a day or more until it became a habit, so it becomes muscle memory. Where our mind and body are not separate. They're actually one. Mm-hmm. We use, subconscious as a construct, but we don't see it, but we reference it in some sort of model. Our mind, body, heart, and soul are so interconnected. So when people develop these habits, these thought patterns, and these negative habitual thought patterns, once they switch them to positive, that's where the magic starts happening, because then they're on autopilot.
Yeah. And the one thing that I found too, especially putting myself out there in the early times, insofar as my friend and mentor who worked at LinkedIn, when I was interviewed by CBC Radio and they called me a social media guru, which was years ago. And my friend was like, you put that right on your headline. And I was like, but Anita, people are gonna, and I was worried about all that stuff. And now when people call me on the phone, they're like, is this CBC social media guru? I'm like, yeah, I am. Like, it's funny how those little baby steps of putting myself out there a little bit at a time. Now when people can, like, you know, when the big hammer drops and someone calls me on it, like, who do you think you are? Yeah. I can be playful with it because the people who support me are always going to have my back. And the people who don't support me, that's okay. That you're right. That's the story they have in their head about who I am is a whole lot different. And I had to reframe that in my brain a lot too. Mm-hmm. To go to speak publicly, and the first time I'm sure you did with a small group, it was like, and then people, oh, that was great, thank you so much. I'm like, really? And I still have it. I still have it, Wayne, where I still go like, oh, here she goes again. You know, like afterwards, I'm like, I could have done that better. I could have slowed down. I could have, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah. Well, there's a great process too that helps, not just even on going on stage. I'll share it. I always want to share a few things that people can pick up from, or pick up and use it in their own life. But it's the R's of life, and I say it's, you know, like the 4 R's. You want to look at everything as a rehearsal, and then you want to review it, you want to revise it, then you want to repeat. Mm-hmm. And that process right there is a process of, say, when you go on stage and you beat yourself up. Well, if you look at everything as a rehearsal and you go through the process of, you know, you're giving value, you're communicating whatever it is, you're giving a tool to somebody, giving something of some importance, and you did it, and then you look at it and you go, okay, this is what I can do better next time. You're going to get better. The challenge is that, like, when people keep beating themselves up, they'll get more of beating themselves up, right? And so, and it also eases people into things where they look at it as everything's like a rehearsal, because everything's a process. Like, I teach people, like, the mental end game. What's your mental end game? And the reason I say mental end game is because there's something in their mind, and if they achieve that, that's an amazing thing. And it's not really about the end game. It's about having that goal that pulls them like a magnet, so they become the person it takes to achieve it. Because in that process, they become more of who they are, and no one can ever take that away from them. Whether it's becoming a better speaker, better at sales, but it's getting themselves out there step by step, as you said in your experience. Every time you grow into it, and then you own it.
Yeah, and the perception too that we're like, there's an easy button for all of this. That if I just took this magic pill, and what was that? There was that movie where he just took the magic pill and he was a genius overnight or whatever, and how there are consequences to, like, when you do things and you are amazing right away. That's not normal and it's not natural. It's like, we didn't learn to walk in one day. We didn't learn to ride a bike in one day. It's not, that doesn't happen. It's a process.
It's a process.
And so I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be like, oh, I just want to be like so-and-so, when we need to just be the best version of ourselves, really. Yeah. So your point, like, I do beat myself up, and I also, as you can hear my NLP language, and the comedy language too, right? Is recognizing that it is the beauty and the imperfections. That there's a concept called wabi-sabi that I came across not too long ago. That's what it is. It's finding the beauty and imperfections. That if this cup were broken, that it was glued back together with gold. Because who likes perfect? Perfect is boring. Perfect is boring. Let's be ourselves and be different. And I think people are drawn to that authenticity, because if it's too perfect, it doesn't seem to resonate as well when it's too perfect.
Right. Like, if, you know, it's like what you say in regards to, like, there's such a great attraction for people just being themselves. Yes. You know, no matter how they look and what the perception is. I mean, that is such an attractive quality, is confidence. Yeah. It's people just owning who they are and being completely okay. And that's the best way to influence somebody else, is being yourself, is being wholeheartedly, because then you're not projecting a wall. You're not putting, you know, this barrier up. You're just being you. And it also gives permission and influences other people to do the same. Simple, easier said than done a lot of times. Mm-hmm. Yet, you know, when people start owning that and creating that, and I hear that from people that have, you know, been asked the question as they've lived a longer life. They say, you know, I've just stopped caring what other people think. Mm-hmm. I'm just comfortable in my own skin. But it's taken so long for people to do that, that you could do it now.
Yeah.
And people can give that up and they can do it now because it does take a decision. One of the things that I'm very adamant about is that all beliefs are decisions. And when you think about when somebody changes their lives or they transform their life,
Mm-hmm.
it is
Transform.
because of it. Yeah. Transformers, the transform movement. My little saying is that all transformation happens in trance.
Okay.
And the trance that people are living in is the negative trance or the negative trance trap where they're beating themselves up. They can't do it. They're not good enough. There's not enough time. And the list goes on and on. So that's the negative trance. People have to pick a better trance. They have to suspend those illusions or those disbelief long enough to then go into the space where anything is possible and they're unlimited. And unless people wake up from their own trance and pick a different trance, no transformation happens. That's the key to it. But the part that I was talking about before, I have no idea. I forget what it was.
That's okay. So did I, because I was like transformed, right? I was
See
like,
how we tranced ourselves out of it, how we got into this amnesia, and now on the count of 3, I'll bring it back.
Well, we do. We got like because I'm like mesmerized, and that's another word.
I was talking about how all beliefs are decisions, but at a subconscious level, people believe in, say, their depth of that belief is really close to them, and they've had this experience of the past that they've had a lot of failures, so they believe that they're a person that fails a whole lot. Now they can pick a different decision and say, I am going to succeed in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yet a lot of times people don't. But it's as simple as starting to pick a belief, because in the moment with that recycling of an old belief, which is a hypnotic belief that's held at the subconscious level, people can make a decision and start to rewire their brain, the neurosynaptic connections. I mean, there's science on this, that when they start talking and deciding, things start changing at the cellular level in their brain. But why aren't people doing it? They don't believe they can, or right? So it's about making a decision, first of all, of how you want to live your life, what you want, and whether you feel like you deserve it or not.
Yeah. And I think one of the basic fundamentals that we know from neurolinguistic planning, that there is no failure, there's only feedback. And those, when the mic drops with comments like that, it's like, that's a great way to live, because then there is no failure. There's no possibility for failure.
Yeah.
The feedback is what you get. And then it's like, oh, well, what am I so afraid of?
Yeah.
What am I so afraid of? If I do this, because I'm mindful of not using the word try. We can talk about those words, right?
Yeah.
If we do this and it doesn't work, that's okay, right? So that's what I want to
learn
talk about
something.
too, is like the words, because I know this is in your stage performance too, is those powerful words like but, try, and should.
Yeah.
That are really heavy words. So talk to us a little bit about those.
Yeah, and they can be, and they can be heavier for one person than another. So again, I go back to, how does it make you feel?
Right.
So what are those, like, check in, because words are words, and sometimes people will use a word and it may not be stopping them as how somebody else is using it. But typically, when somebody sets a goal and they say, this is what I want, before they even start to move forward, they will throw up but, try, or can't. I had one lady at one of my events and she says, do your weight loss hypnosis programs work? I've tried everything. I know they might work for other people, but I don't think they'll work for me. I can't seem to be losing the weight. So she was firing on all cylinders, all of the negative programming words. And I knew right away is that if she didn't change that in herself, nothing would really change. And hypnosis program is not going to do anything until you have some openness about how you're speaking to yourself. So but negates everything that comes before it. It's throwing up a lot of pain that you're going to experience in achieving this goal. So first of all, it's a negative self-limiting belief that negates every one of your desires that you just said you wanted. So a great word to replace but with is and. Mm-hmm. So I want this, and it's going to take some work. And so and is a great linking word to link what you want with what it's going to take. And the other word, try, usually implies failure. So when somebody says, I'll try to do it, like, you can tell just in their tone and their voice that they're giving themselves a way out. So I'll try. And then if it doesn't work out, they'll say, well, see, I tried. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So instead of try, take that out of your vocabulary and do it, or don't do it. And then you don't spend energy wasted on trying. And then the last word is can't. I mean, that's one that I talk about when people say, I can't do it. It really means one of two things. Like, I'm a believer that anything is possible and you are unlimited. So that has served me. And I know that if people have these empowering beliefs, it'll serve them. And the word can't, that's not even in the vocabulary of like to my goals. So it means one of two things. Either they don't want to do it, or they just haven't figured out a way. And so taking the word can't out of your vocabulary, you can replace it with there's always a way. Mm-hmm. There's always a way. And that in and of itself is just opening up possibilities that will then unfold.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very interesting, like on stage, when people are hypnotized, I'll say, putting your hands together, imagine that there's crazy glue in your hand. So they got this visual picture, this image. They say, the more you try to take your hands apart, the more you can't. You want to take your hands apart, but you can't. So I've used those words strategically so they can't get their hands apart. And the interesting thing is that there's no crazy glue in their hands, yet their imagination has produced it. So a couple things are playing out here is that it's the power of the words negatively programming them, and also the power of the greatest gift that we've been given is our imagination. And so the imagination is where change happens. So the mere fact that somebody just imagines they have the crazy glue in their hands is what produces their reality. So most people are imagining the worst to happen, and that's what stops them from even moving forward. Or most people are imagining what's happened in the past, which then doesn't help them create a big future vision to move forward. So here's the acronym for IMAGINE, which are ideas manifesting and growing into natural existence. So anything that, you know, people are imaging or imagining long enough, they're going to imagine it happening. A lot of times people aren't getting the results they want because they imagine this, and then they imagine this, and they imagine why it can't work out or how they're not going to. And there's a lot of countering energies that create stuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I think another powerful word for me is recognizing the word should.
Yeah.
So, you know, when people say, oh, you know, you should do this and you should do that. And then people say, I don't want people to should all over me. Yeah. It's like, and I asked my NLP coach and trainer, I said, so as a people pleaser, the should is like, so like, and so what she said is you can say to someone, yeah, I could.
Yeah.
So if someone shoulds you, you don't have to correct them. You can say, yeah, I could do that, which implies I'm listening. Yeah. I hear what you're saying to me. I'm not taking that, yeah, I should. Because that then, and then I go, and then, yeah, I should do that. And there's like this shame of like, yeah, I should do that. And so then it applies and also to your point, then it opens up the opportunity of, yeah, I could do that. That would be an option for me. Not necessarily doing it. I'm not, you know, I could do it.
let me empower myself and make the decision.
Yeah. Which
some people aren't standing in the ground and making their own decisions, and the should usually comes from somebody else's hypnotic program.
Right. And it's also interesting. I just love this stuff so much, as I know you do, and the powerful language, because we, as you know, kind of even talking about, you know, I think of things as like anything that I would type into Google is the same language that I would want to talk to myself. And one of the reframes that I did when my son was little is I took out the word bad and I put in not nice. And so those little subtle shifts in language so I would say, well, that's not nice behavior, didn't make him a bad kid. It meant that the behavior that he was doing. So it's all these little subtleties, I think. You and I are so, like, we think it's so cool because it is about the power of positivity, right? I mean, you know, I call it benevolent manipulation. It is what we're trying to do is get people to do things for good and you know, and to make their lives a bigger, better place for them. And that's what you're all about. That's what your whole thing's all about.
Yeah, no, influence and persuasion is really what hypnosis is too. It's a process, and you know, it can be used for one or the other. People can, you know, be very selfish with it, or it can be, like, as you say, benevolent and used for good for everyone. And so when people are themselves and they're aligned to what they want, they're not only following their heartfelt desires, but they're not being swayed by everyone else. That's truly influencing them at the highest level to be doing what they do and serving others with it.
So, sure. Yeah. So, and the other thing that you do that I love what you do when you, because this still blows my mind whenever you're walking around. I remember being in Vancouver with you and you were walking around doing these magic tricks. Mind blown. Like every
Yeah.
single time you do it, I keep thinking, hey, I'm gonna pick a different card. I'm gonna pick a different card, and like every single, because I'm right with the person, and how do you do that? So it must have taken you a long time to learn magic, did it?
You know, when I was in grade 2, my mom gave me a magic kit. And when I got the magic kit, I thought it was fascinating figuring it out. Actually, in grade 2, I think I had a finger chopper magic trick, and I hurt the teacher with it because I didn't set it up right. So my first experience was kind of negative. Yeah, it didn't stop me. I was determined. And what I found is that when I did the magic, I loved entertaining. But what I found the most satisfying is the look on people's faces, and that look is the sense of wonder. And that's real magic. That's the sense of it. When we lose a sense of wonder, wonder is what leads to wisdom. Wonder is what leads to possibilities. Like the acronym I have for wonder is the way of now discovering everything remarkable. So it's how we create the sense of, like, if you knew everything, life would be boring. That's why I have this sense of what's out there, what's possible. It's a sense, and that's what magic is. And so I was always hooked as a young kid about magic. And I, became a school teacher. I remember using it there. And then when I started to do hypnosis, I realized this is magic of the mind. So it was a natural progression as I moved forward. And I always just found that the magic was part of my character, was part of it. So some of the things took longer to learn than others. Some it's just practice, practice, practice. Others are a little bit more self-working. But we could do the card thing right here if you want.
Oh my gosh, okay. I'm going to freak out because you always freak me out. Okay. If you have the cards, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So this wasn't pre-planned, obviously.
No, it wasn't at all. That's why I'm already blushing already, going like, you're going to
wow. So I've got a deck. And let's say you didn't, throughout our whole conversation, and you can rewatch it if you want, but you didn't remember me saying anything about cards, right?
No, we didn't talk about cards at all.
Okay. Through our gestures and the words, we can influence people. We can influence people at a subconscious level, so then they act upon what we've influenced without sometimes them even knowing. That's kind of like how the world wakes up, or how the world is, and how you have to wake up to what's really happening. That's just kind of a little preface, because what I want you to do, and I know you've done this before at one of the events, so I want you to think of a card in a deck of cards, but I'm going to give you some rules to this, okay? Okay. So first of all, the Ace of Spades and the Queen of Hearts are what most people pick. Subconsciously, they got it locked in their mind. So just put that off to the side. Don't pick one of those cards. You got that?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So now what I'm going to get you to do is instead of you picking a card, I'm going to get you actually just to pick a color, either a red or black.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're a fairly visual person, right? Because you have to.
No, actually, I'm not. I did. No? I went there because I knew I needed to go there. I'm much more auditory, actually.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this should work because you picked up on some of the language here. Yet you did think of a color, right? Now, of that color, and the cards are right here. Yeah. It's no secret. What color did you pick? Was it black or was it red?
Red.
Okay. So out of red, you have diamonds and hearts, right?
Right.
Pick one of those.
Okay.
Okay. Which one did you pick?
Diamonds.
Okay. So diamonds are a girl's best friend.
You bet.
Okay.
You bet it is.
And now what I want you to do is, out of any card in the deck that's a diamond, just lock onto one right now. Pick it in your mind.
Okay.
And what came to your mind?
8.
No other card, right?
I went 7 and then 8. So I went 7, 8.
Okay. And so, you want to stick with that? You want to stick with the...
Sure. I'll stick with the 8 of diamonds.
Okay. So right. Interesting how we jumped on this, right? Yeah. 8 of diamonds, and you could have said any card, right. But I reversed one in here.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And it's near the top.
Uh-huh. All right. And it's face down.
Face down is the only one.
Face down,
and I
only one.
Had an idea that...
What is happening? What is happening? I don't know how you do that.
Well, do you want me to tell you?
Crazy. Well, yeah, but I know that's against every magician's code of conduct. You can't tell me how you did it. right?
I
Can you,
can.
can you tell me?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I think it's so cool. I'm blushing because I don't usually get so excited about these things.
So how I did it is it was magic.
Well, I know. But that is so cool. So I'm so curious because honestly, Wayne, you've like at the other conferences when I'm sitting next to someone, I'll come up with the same thing that they do. And then I'm like, how is this happening that the hypnotic suggestion that they're thinking in their brain and I'm getting it, I'm right along with the ride. And oh my gosh, it's mind blowing. That is the coolest thing ever. I can't believe you can do that. It's awesome. That is
Cool.
awesome.
Well, I'm glad we get to entertain a little bit on this too and have some fun and
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, so I had all these questions and I haven't even
Yeah.
looked really at my notes because I'm like, we talked about
That's a
so
good sign because we're just conversing.
I know, because so I think we've talked so much about this because it's the peak performance. I think there's a lot of people that I think register because that peak performance, which is what your brand really is all about, it's all of these things combined. So you offer coaching and those kinds of things to help people ladder up. Is that you know? So tell me, we can
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that because before we had a really brief little chat before we went live. Was that because of not being able to go and do these live sessions, you've learned to as the word is pivot or reiterate or whatever, however people are going to use it. So now you're doing these coaching, you're doing these online things. Doesn't necessarily need to have to be in person in order for people to get the benefits of what you have to offer.
Yeah, and I think that's one of maybe my limiting beliefs is that, hey, I got to be up on stage, I got to be in front of the people. In fact, my new stage right now is right here, is being able to deliver this, reach actually more people. And like you said before, even have a hybrid where we do live events where we can, so and then, with the group coaching and that, what I've really found is the power of the group. Like I will do one-on-one sessions with people and it'll be in a group setting and busting somebody's belief, like say a belief that they weren't worthy and they've had that belief since, for 50 years, they've had that belief working with a client and in 20 minutes to show how somebody can bust that belief, not just is done to one person, it speaks to all these other people that are watching. And I don't know how many people have said me, like that's exactly what I needed to hear today and that energy of it. So it's really opened up my eyes to the power of the group, the power of reaching, and also the power of what I'm doing. So in the process, my wife and I created the Transform movement.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so really it is about waking people up from their self-limiting beliefs, the negative thoughts, and the destructive behaviors that stop them from taking their life and their business to the next level. Mm-hmm. And it's really at that subconscious level that people are battling themselves. And so being able to understand that, to identify, erase, and replace is gigantic. And it's allowed us to work with people that are making great strides and things that they didn't even think that was stopping them. And now they're realizing, oh my goodness, they're free. So that's been a gigantic shift for us in regards to being able to go online and work with people in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's so cool. And I know there was a few weeks ago I was talking with my friend Kimberly Black, who has a very interesting and it's a horrible backstory insofar as that she was attacked last July. She was attacked not far from where I live in Whitby. She was brutally beaten and left for dead and all these other things. And the interesting thing from that is that she's transformed her business, her messaging into this Be Positive movement. That within like less than a year, she's taking the learning that she's learned from having the most horrific, the most terrifying thing that's happened to her, and yet she's using it for good. That she's using this message to say, "Listen, I'm okay," and if I can get through something that is, what people would perceive to be like the worst thing that ever happened to them, that I'm still moving forward with my life, and it's like so. That's why I love these like tribes of us that are all together, sort of working towards the same messaging of like, how do we lift each other up? Yeah. And that's why I said to you before, that's why I wanted to talk to you today, because those self-limiting beliefs, those frustrations of putting ourselves out there is so universal. And I think it makes me feel a lot better to realize that I'm not alone in this journey. Mm-hmm. And knowing that you've crafted like 20 years of experience talking to so many different executives and entrepreneurs. And so you've worked with a wide range of people, probably people all over the world too, to really help them with this. Do you still struggle with your own? Like, do you still struggle with, or are you pretty much like, no, I got this, like insofar as your own, like self-limiting beliefs or?
I am like a rock.
Yeah, nothing phases you?
This COVID and this whole experience has been a great example of, again, us being able to switch, pivot, but going through like, oh my goodness, the growing pains, the learning, the self-doubt, or, is this possible? So yeah, it's stuff I teach because I need to learn it. And that's the best way to learn it, is then teach it, and also to get it out there and realize that the perfection is in the progress.
Yeah.
And so this year was a big wake up of exactly that. That led into us creating like this, our lead-in system of the 21-day subconscious reset, which we've helped tremendous amount of people. But it wasn't us about going, well, here's the shelf program that we brought out for you. We had to create it as we were going along. And so that's the beauty of it, is that I was swimming through my own doubts, my own vulnerabilities, in the process, serving others and letting people know that it's okay to do that. In fact, this is the best way to create, is showing that you don't have it all figured out, and that you have faith, and that you're going through it, and it's going to be okay. In fact, it's going to be brilliant. And knowing that in chaos, there is creation if people choose to see the opportunity or make the opportunity.
Because it will be the new normal, just like 9/11 was a disastrous event that, for like it or not, it changed the world. This too is going to change the world. It's like
it already has.
Yeah,
it already has. I mean, whether people call it a spiritual awakening, or they just call it a giant paradigm shift, there's going to be ways that we don't go back to. And there is a movement forward in regards to how we do things, how we think, and wake up to who people really are. And I think that's the biggest thing, is it's time for people to wake up to who they are and own that, whatever that means to them.
And what's important, I think a lot of people have sort of taken stuff, like it or not, we're forced to spend a lot of time with our families, right? The people that we're living with. And I think, to me, it's given me a newfound appreciation for the people that I live with. I'm so grateful that I live in the same house with like all the people that I love the most. If I didn't, that would be much harder, because then I wouldn't be able to see them. But we're changing the way that we are connecting, because people are doing these Zoom calls. Yesterday, one of my closest friends had her 60th birthday in a Zoom call.
Yes.
Whereas we would have connected, in real life. And so it doesn't stop us from connecting with the people that we care about. It's just a different way.
It is a different way, for sure. And I'm excited about what's going to be playing out over the next couple of years. I mean, because we have a choice, right? Be excited or not. And so I really think it's exciting times to move forward, to offer tremendous amount of value, for people to come together, for people to understand their own power. There's lots of great reasons to move forward in a great way, helping each other. So
and sometimes we need, like, as you said, like we started with, is that coaching. It's like sometimes just having a sounding board. Because I think you probably, what you might, I'm presupposing, what you might be doing is just mirroring back to the people the same things, right? It's a lot of mirroring back. This, what you're saying to me is blank. And then they go, oh yeah, I never really realized that's exactly what I was saying.
Well, it's great to have somebody that can see it with outside eyes and ask great questions, and then being able to help them move through it. I mean, today I was coaching somebody, and in a moment, like, my coaching client just went, and she had a shift. And it wasn't anything, that a tool or technique that I was doing with her. It was a question. And that question got her to see things in a way she hadn't thought about before. And sometimes that's all that is needed to get people to go in that introspective way where they need somebody. And also, when you have this communication link and there's a rapport there, there's this synergy that starts to happen as well. When it's almost like somebody's got your back, somebody's supporting you. You don't have to be alone. You're seen. Because some of the stuff that comes out just needs to be said too, right? So lots of great reasons that I see now more so than ever about the power of other people helping through coaching and mentoring, and being in that environmental exposure that is positive.
Yeah. And the one thing, I know we're going to wrap up now, and we still have so much to talk about, and we didn't even talk to people about this, is like the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic processing. So I guess if people want to get in touch with you, because recognizing whether people process information visually, auditory, kinesthetically is so powerful when it comes to sales, when it comes to like talking with other people. And I even though I've taken NLP on a number of different occasions, I'm still not my self-limiting belief. I'm not yet there to be paying attention to those cues. And I would assume that, like, if somebody's in sales and they realize they start to practice a little bit more, listening for those different cues that it can help them with their sales game. So I'm going to encourage people to get in touch with you to do that, because you can help them identify those things and help them ladder up and take their whole sales and leadership skills and communication skills really to a whole new level, for sure.
Yeah, no, and we've got, like, again, our 21-day subconscious reset challenge is a great taste for people to start getting really clear on what they want. Most people, I find, don't know what they want, and that's a self-limiting belief, because it's about commitment and putting themselves out there. So jumping on the challenge actually gets people to realize, hey, here I'm connecting with my heartfelt desire. I'm going to bust some beliefs that are stopping me, and I'm going to move forward and create a habit of it. So we've had hundreds of people go through that. And that's a great start for people that want to, health, wealth, and relationships, whether they want to, if they're in sales and they want to take it to the next level. That program is great. And again, it's one of those things, it really gets people clear on what they want and how to get past what's stopping them.
Mm-hmm. And using the right language. I think you and I are both such big champions of this. We've been talking about this for an hour, of using the right language for ourselves and for the people that are in our lives, whether they be clients, customers, or family members. Even from a relationship standpoint, it does help to communicate using the right words.
Yeah. And I think when people make it a game and they make it fun and they have fun with it, then they don't beat themselves up, and they realize that, it's an ongoing process, right? Because people, with their language, they're beating themselves up, and then even replacing their language patterns, and they're like, oh, I didn't do that right. Now they're beating themselves up even more. So to make it fun and light, I do have one tool to leave the group.
Perfect.
Here. So I call it the reminder tool, because I find that in the midst of when people are in their own belief, they don't even realize they're there. So it's the acronym MIND. It's very simple and very powerful. And the people that have gone through the 21-day challenge, some of the greatest feedback is because of this tool. So it's when people are catching themselves in a negative thought or a self-limiting belief, they say, me, I now decide, and then finish the positive statement as opposed to what you were just beating yourself up about. So example would be, so again, MIND is me, I now decide. They make a conscious decision, and what's happening is they're programming it at a subconscious level. So me, I now decide, I'm focusing upon what's powerful and positive. So even a little shift like that gets them to switch what they're focusing upon. If somebody thinks that they're not enough, it's making a decision. Me, I now decide I am enough. That right there starts to create the shift.
I love it. That's awesome. So how can thank you so much for leaving us with that, a nugget, there's so many though. There's so many. I know, you got so much. And so how can people get in touch with you? How do they reach you?
So they can go to my website, just waynelee.com, shoot me a message. But again, we're leading people to the 21-day challenge, which is, I'm not sure if there's a place to post the website here.
In the chat, or I can put it in. So afterwards, so we do this live, and then I share it on LinkedIn, or I'm going to share it. Yeah, I'm going to share it everywhere. LinkedIn, YouTube, and so forth. So
I can put it in the chat, but it is just waynelee.com/21-day-challenge.
Okay.
And that gives people an idea of how they can jump on board, do something 10 minutes a day, which is really digestible. There's a little task. And in that time period, some of the results vary from, health results to wealth results to relationships, and it goes across the board. So that's the best way that people can funnel in to find out more about what we're doing and how we can help them.
That's fantastic. Well, I know you're a game changer, peak performance expert. And as I said, I've seen you 3 times, and I'm it's never kind of like, oh, I can leave now because here's Wayne going on stage. You're a delight. You make people so happy. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I was going to say, Leslie, even when it doesn't go that well, like the show or the presentation, yeah. I hypnotize people to believe that it went exceptionally well. So.
Well, I'm a big fan, so it worked. It worked.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on. It's been just such a fun, pleasurable time here.
I'm thrilled that you agreed. So thank you so much for chatting with me, and we'll definitely be in touch again very, very soon. And I hope people reach out to you and let us know, even if they watch it after the fact, what their biggest takeaway. Because I know we dropped a lot of truth bombs. right?
Oh,
Like we were all over the place, changing lives, one person at a time.
transform it. Oh, and here's a sense of urgency. Our next challenge starts May 3rd, and it's not a pre-formed thing. I go live with the people every day, so it's a really great time to connect with me at that time. There's question and answers. So May 3rd, this Monday, if people want to jump on board, go to it.
May 3rd, that's amazing because, then they can take it into like the summer months.
Yeah.
Right. And I always find for me, it's like, oh, that's a really good time when I'm not as busy work wise, that I can then take the opportunity to myself to like up level myself and learn and stuff like that.
And we've had people, we've done 3 challenges since COVID. Like it's been a blessing to be able to do this. We're doing our 4th one. This is it. We've had people go on it 3 times. Like it's only $47, so people are cycling around.
Only $47. Are you kidding?
Oh,
That's amazing.
Yeah, and because if the people take the test drive, they get these great results. If they want to come on my group coaching platform, then that's another level. But it gives people great results, and it gives them an opportunity to see what the teachings are all about and how much it can influence them. So I say go to it, May 3rd.
That's an investment for sure. For $50, like come on.
Yeah.
It's so great. Okay, awesome. I know we could talk all day. I just love it.
Cool.
I'm always like pulling you away at the conferences, like, let's talk.
Well, that's
so much fun. Yeah.
It means that we're having tons of fun.
I know we do. I said it's going to be positive power hour. There's no doubt about that. So, so thanks again, and we will definitely be talking soon because I think I'm going to be signing up for $50. I'm going to be like,
awesome. You gotta jump on it. Cool.
Okay, thanks again.
Okay, Leslie.
Okay, bye for now.